All right, welcome, Inappropriate Earl guest. This next guest is why I did this podcast many moons ago. I wanted to interview people that meant a lot to me, either comics, musicians, hockey players, the bad guy from Superman 2. So we're going to get right to it because this guy has no idea who I am, and he still agreed to do the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the lead singer from Bowling for Soup, Mr. Jaret Reddick.
Man, that applause is thunderous. I know who you are. We've been talking for ever since before COVID. And you forgot to mention wrestlers. I'm sure you've interviewed wrestlers.
Absolutely. Rowdy Roddy Piper, Chavo Guerrero. Most of the other wrestlers have told me no, they don't know who I am. I'm honest.
Yeah. I love that we found friendship through Rat and Kamala.
Speaking of Kamala, we'll do this right here, a little Kamala doll.
Very nice. Okay, I like it.
Yeah, and
he was the most terrifying man on the planet to me back in the day. Oh, Abdullah.
The great Abdullah the Butcher, managed by the inimitable Gary Hart.
Yes, Gary Hart, one of the greats.
What got you into wrestling?
Man, I mean, so we didn't get national wrestling, and back in the day, it was all divided up into regions. And so, I feel like we were really lucky in that we got world-class championship wrestling here, and it was done here at the Sportatorium. And the Von Erichs, man, I mean, they were the original rock stars in my life. I was I really was, I don't know if infatuated is the word, but I had I still have them all somewhere, but autographs and photos. One time I saw Mike wrestle and he was all bloody, and I wiped his blood on his picture and kept it, but all of those characters used to come through here. So, I saw Kamala and I saw Ric Flair come here to fight Kerry. And, it was just, I just loved it, man, every Wednesday and Saturday night. And then, World Wrestling Federation started to come in where we live on Sundays. And then we started to get a few of the Atlanta things. We could get that, I think, on Tuesday. So, it was kind of just something that was always on, but I definitely, the majority of my wrestling fandom was here in Dallas, and just the soap opera of the Freebirds and the Von Erichs. And, but, again, always loved it when dudes came through, like the Rock and Roll Express, and, who I liked just because they were the Rock and Roll Express. I didn't, there was no real other reason. I just liked rock and roll.
Well, I mean, to me, I'm 52, so I grew up watching wrestling when there wasn't really the internet. So, and it's a joke I do on stage, but I really thought Kamala was from Uganda, and
me too. Absolutely, me too. And I thought, I actually thought the missing link was from Parts Unknown. I really did think that they did not know where the guy was from. And then the Mongol, remember the Mongol? He was from Mongolia, but he was white.
I mean, some of those characters don't necessarily stand up in this cancel culture we're in now.
Right.
I don't think you could have the junkyard dog coming to the ring with a dog collar on, barking.
Yeah, and a chain around his neck, and just that whole thing. I did. They're definitely not. They're definitely a lot of that. Well, just the fact that gorgeous Jimmy Garvin to me is the original dude that had the valet, and
right.
And so he had, I believe, Sunshine was the original valet, and then they got into a lot more of the dudes, Randy or the what is it? Who's the Slim Jim guy? I just lost it.
Macho Man Savage.
And he had Elizabeth, right? And so that kind of all branched off to me of gorgeous Jimmy Garvin being that first guy. But then just in the way that they treated those women sometimes, it's I don't know if we can do that anymore.
Well, I mean, world-class wrestling, the stars that they had later became giant in WWF. My favorite was the Ultimate Warrior, who back then was the Dingo Warrior.
Yeah. Yep.
And Scott Hall was the diamond stud, and
Yeah, we had gentleman Chris Adams with the super kick, and
right.
I know Kevin did pretty well. Kevin Von Erich did pretty well in the in the more of the national type thing. I mean, it's really sad that that Kerry didn't get to do that really as big as he could have been, just because of the accident and just all of the things I guess that went on in their lives. That's a freaking tragic story. But I'm glad that Kevin's doing great, living in Hawaii, and his kids are wrestling, as you know, and so at least that's going well.
I mean, the Dark Side of the Ring episode that went into the Von Erichs is like, I think I was depressed for a week.
Yeah,
because it was just like, how can all this happen to one family? And it's I always equate wrestlers with musicians and comics. It's a pretty dark lifestyle you have to lead, and a lot, I would say probably 80% aren't built for it.
You're so right. I mean, it's you have to have like, there's not many Steve Martins in the world, that like just are mentally this one person, and they're just like, okay, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create this world, but I'm just going to be a normal just guy, but I'm going to keep to myself and be very stern. And I, so many of us can get caught up in that, and I see from the musician standpoint, at least, and you see it from the comedy standpoint, and me being a stand-up comedy fan, watching, so many of them have just the darkest side to them. Musicians are the same, man. It's as you say, it's sad, the ones that have gotten caught up in it, whether it's depression or drugs and alcohol, or a combination of all of it. Girls, from the rock and roll standpoint, it's definitely, I wonder, does comedy have that element? Like wrestlers and when you're in a rock band, do y'all have like chicks that come to shows just to bang you?
Well, we do actually. Maybe not in quite the numbers that you guys do, but
well, there's only one of you, so you don't have to have the same numbers. It's like,
I think though that the allure for there being only one of us is, we don't have to divide. Like, if there's a girl, say you and the drummer, I'm not saying Chris, the drummer in your band, Gary, but
yeah,
as the comic, you get them all.
right.
Or you have the option to get them all.
Yeah.
Versus, say Bowling for Soup, you gotta go, okay, who's Eric like, who does Rob like, and et cetera. So
Yeah.
there are some benefits, but I would say the downfall is, like, if you're in a bad band, you can blame it on the drummer behind you.
Right.
If you're a bad comic,
Very true. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't really blame the
You
curtain.
always have somebody to blame. And like, even if you tell a stinker, like you try to go into a joke or what, and as well, if you've never seen Bowling for Soup, much of our show is banter and just talking about nothing. But when you do dig yourself a little hole and it's a stinker, you have the other guys to go, yeah, that, and just lift you back up, throw you a little volley, and you're up there by yourself, man.
I mean, it's high risk, high reward, but that's what makes a good set. I say almost of a sexual nature, like it feels that good. But
Yeah.
when it doesn't go well, it can be like coming early, just the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, or not at all, or
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Well, that's what, when I saw you guys play at the Roxy, it's my only time ever seeing you guys. Two things stood out to me. One, I was standing next to you the whole time in the crowd and had no idea it was you. You were watching the opening act, the Dolly Rots, and I thought, wow, that's amazingly cool of you to not just give a cursory listen and go back and I don't know, do whatever you do back there, and your sense of humor on stage. Like, I believe when you guys played a new song, you said something to the effect of, hey, this is a new song, so if you got to take a shit, now would be the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, wow, that made me a bigger fan. Like that's just that honesty of you probably being in a crowd and seeing Rat or whoever, Kiss, playing a new song and maybe going to the bathroom.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you a true story, actually. Um, and to me, this is somehow the Gym Blossoms just end up in so many of my stories, and I don't know why. I don't know them, but I mentioned them in 2 songs. But me and my ex took my kids to see this, and let it be known that I've always been like that. Like I understand from a musician standpoint, who's been in Bowling for Soup for almost 27 years. And I think we have 21 albums or something crazy if you count the EPs. And I understand that people want to hear 12 songs, and then I've got 3 or 4 that I could sort of play around with or whatever. But I would never be just enough of an asshole to go out and expect people to pay money to see me play all of my new shit that I wrote 20 fucking years after the song that they want to hear, So me and my ex took my kids to a festival, and the Gin Blossoms came up, and man, they've got a lot of songs, like a lot of big hits. And he starts the thing, and he just like, yep, well, we just got out of the studio, really happy about this new album. So we're going to take some time here during the set, play you guys 4 or 5 new songs. And it was mass exodus. It was packed. It was a big festival, and just to the porta potties on the right, to the beer stands on the left, and everybody just gone. And sure enough, and then they played "Hey Jealousy," and everybody went back. So that's definitely a bit that I recycle from time to time, especially when we have a new album out. And so we've got shows coming up. We've got this new song out called "Getting Old Sucks, But Everybody's Doing It." And we will play that song. And luckily for us, it's doing really, really well. So I might not have to tell people that they can leave. But later on this year, when we sprinkle in another one, it'll definitely be one of those things where I don't expect every single person to be stoked hearing something that, because not everybody's like that. Not everybody's that kind of fan. And, I'm depending on the band, I'm not that way,
But you guys have so many iconic songs, like at that show at the Roxy, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your, where. Literally every song the crowd sang the complete, the complete song. I don't think I've ever been to a show before, since, or during that week where that has ever happened. I mean, even like at a Kiss show, which was like the last big concert I went to right before COVID, people might sing a chorus of, I don't know, shout it out loud, but like they don't know the words. Like I was like, wow, this is amazing. Now I know why you guys are so popular.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're definitely, like I said, there's we have 9 legitimate hits, and of them we probably play 7 every single show. And then you've always got the fan favorites and those, and you sort of know based upon, I can just kind of look in the crowd and say, okay, this is a When We Die crowd, or this is a Turbulence crowd. And I'm only going to play one of those, and I haven't decided yet. And then you just sort of can gauge it based upon, how they're reacting to things and all of that. And we're really lucky in that the fan base that we have managed to keep and gain along the way, they're very loyal, and they're very passionate, and they tend to know even the songs that I don't expect them to know. Like it's like they'll shout out some song, and it's just like, how do you even know that song exists? That was a B-side on a record that didn't sell. But again, I feel very blessed, and I know that's a bit of a cheesy word to say these days, but it's really the only way to describe it, because our crowds just always have that energy, and it doesn't matter where anymore. Like it used to be, to where like college shows to us weren't all that great, and then all the kids who listened to 1985 on Radio Disney and watched Phineas and Ferb got to college, and now our college shows are crazy. they're awesome. And and our audience is growing. We're playing bigger places than we were 15 years ago. So definitely a testament to that fan base.
What's the because I know, like, I'm going to mention a band I am fans of. How do you like your band, like the Click Five, who I am obsessed with for whatever reason? Because I probably don't fit the model of a boy band fan. um,
Sure.
but like most boy bands struggle, and I didn't think of them as a boy band necessarily because they were all like graduates of the Berkeley Music School and could play their instruments. But they seem to struggle like most boy bands, that when their fan base got older, they moved on to other forms of music. You guys have kept your younger fans into their 20s, 30s, and a guy like me in his 50s. How do you like go about keeping your younger fans when they grow up?
Well, first of all, I feel like a lot of them grew up with us. I mean, we started the band when I was 22, I think. Yeah, that's right. And so, young adulthood, and really I was just learning to even be a songwriter. So most of the stuff on the first 4 or 5 records is just kind of silly, and I don't really ever show you a lot of like real emotion and things like that. As I got more comfortable as a songwriter, you can sort of see that evolution if you go back there and listen through. And then I have Lunch Drunk Love, which is a divorce record, and I feel like at that point a lot of fans had been through that or had parents that went through that or whatever, and could really associate to the songs themselves. So that's sort of the heavy answer. The other thing is, we just I feel like we found our niche pretty early. I We're lucky that our genre stayed strong as well. We had things like Warped Tour and um you know different things like that. And then obviously we had bands that got really big, like Blink 182 and Green Day and All American Rejects, and you know those sort of just kind of kept the flags flying or whatever. And so we sort of made it through. Anytime there'd be sort of like a change of the guard, so to speak, then it just kind of just comes back. And right now pop punk is as big as ever, really. I mean, if you keep up with that kind of thing. But our thing is that we saw our peers, a lot of them who they're funny and then they're not funny and then they're political and then they're angry, and then and that was cool, and musically it was awesome. And I think for some fans, I mean, I know for some fans that was great, and for those bands, they were doing what they wanted to do. But I could sit there and go, we got signed because of the bitch song. I feel like if I start writing about the Republican Party or Democrats or anything remotely political or important to the general population, uh, people are going to just think that that's ridiculous. Like that's just not who we are. Like we are the band that you put on after a hard day at work who makes you feel better, and that's just what we've always done, and who we knew we were. So I think that's a big part of it. I think when you go to a Bowling for Soup show, you know what you're going to get. When you pick up our new record when it comes out in September, wink, wink, uh, you're going to know what you're going to get. Maybe it's evolved one way or the other or gone backwards or whatever, but you know what the vibe is going to be, and you know it's going to make you smile. And that pretty much, is what people expect from us. And so we just adapted to that. And no, we didn't adapt. We just stayed the same. And that's what we did.
Well, that's what I wish Kiss would have done. And they're certainly one of my top bands of all time. But they kind of, first they were a rock band and then they went disco. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Desmond Child. But, and then when
Sure.
the Cars were popular, they put out Unmasked, which is basically a Cars album. And I love the Cars. But,
Yeah.
then Pink Floyd put out The Wall, and so they said, we're going to put out The Elder to prove we can write serious songs. And literally, Bon Jovi became popular. They put out Crazy Nights, which was a Bon Jovi older version, and then grunge was popular, and they put out Carnival of Souls. And like you guys, like you just said, stayed in your lane for 27
Yeah.
years, which is
Yeah.
hard. I would imagine it's hard to not sell out at some point and go, well, REM's popular now. We have to write an album like them.
It is kind of hard not to do that. I mean, it is hard not to follow trends. And I mean, we have done that to an extent. I mean, early on, just a couple of years into our band, really, we, excuse me,
Please.
I just finished watching La La Land, so I'm a little yawny. I a couple of years in, we had released 2 albums on our own. It was time for the third one, and bands like Goldfinger and Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake were doing well, and they all had horns. So we put horns on an album called Rocket Honorable Ones. And even then, though, our horns were very different. They were jazz musicians, so even like tonally and how they come across, it's not like we all of a sudden were a ska band.
Right.
But yeah, man, that was a really good introspective on Kiss and those albums, because I've never really quite thought about that, but it's so very true. And even they were so unique for what seemed like an eternity to me, because I was so young. And then they just, even their clothing would change, like you brought up Crazy Nights. I mean, they're dressed up like Bon Jovi in this, like and Poison and stuff. And and then there's the whole thing where they swore they would never go disco, and of course, Gene likes money, so they did.
Oh, well, I mean, they even did it with their guitar players. I could teach a master class, and I think 4 albums they had 4 different guitar players. I think the early 80s, it was obviously Van Halen was influencing everyone. And
Yeah.
so, well, we need someone who plays like that. So they bring in Vinnie Vincent, who I'm obsessed with. I mean, he's so crazy. He got kicked out of the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. I don't know how that's possible. And then he lost his mind. So they bring in Mark St. John for Animalize, because he was,
Right.
I think he was actually taught by Randy Rhoads, and then he didn't last very long. And then they finally found Bruce Kulick, who could just play and not cause any problems.
Yeah.
But you guys, I always compare you guys, and I mean this as a compliment, to like Cheap Trick, like where they've pretty much stayed in that lane since Budokan. Very few band member changes. I mean, you guys have only had 2 in 27 years, and
Yeah.
I believe both are in good standing.
Yeah. And honestly, the first one, Lance, our original drummer, I mean, he was my best friend from childhood, and it was supposed to be a hobby, and all of a sudden we're touring, and he was never wanted to do that. So that band member change, even to us, is like, okay, that was just, so Gary is when it all really started, because that's when we were going for it. But yeah, then member change we didn't really see coming, but yeah, all in good standing and all cool, not a lot of drama, and no drama really. Hey, a little tidbit. There is a metal band from Europe called Shameless, and they have like all these different players in their band. And I sing on a song with Bruce Kulick coming up pretty soon.
Oh, he's great. Like he's he's so nice, and like one of the most well-rounded guitar players to my untrained music ears. And I think he gets along with everyone, which is maybe what Vinny's problem was.
Yeah, it's crazy though. It's like, think about that stuff, and it's like, as you said, all of that for us is pre-internet, and so we didn't really get all of the behind the scenes and the drama and the back and forth that we get these days when people have a falling out, and it's, even when it's not really public, it sort of just is, finding out those things back then, you had to wait for Circus Magazine to come out, or Hit Parade or whatever, to read about it.
Yeah, well, I remember when Mark St. John, who was only in Kiss for 9 months, he's in the Heavens on Fire video, and then I think the video for Thrills in the Night. I have way too much knowledge in my head. That's
I love
useless. It's Bruce Kulick. I'm like, oh, what happened to the guy in the video? And then, like you said, you had to literally wait, a month or 2 later for Circus to come out and cover it, or Metal Edge.
Yeah.
And then he had some weird hand disease, but then he's in a band, White Tiger, a year later. So, oh, well, was he really sick, or did they just want him out of the band? But now you could go on TMZ and it's instant, or
Is he?
Blabbermouth for music, I
Oh,
guess.
I didn't know that. No, I had no idea. I know that he was. Yeah, I think they blamed it on carpal tunnel or whatever. But
No,
it's like
only I
all.
would know this in 2021. They blamed it on writers syndrome, Reiters, writers, and I was like, "What's that?" And then he's in a new band, so I was like, "You had to wait another 2 months to figure out why is he in a new band? Why isn't he back in Kiss?" And then but like when Eric, and you guys parted ways, you could go on Blabbermouth or a thousand music sites and go, oh, it was like within 5 minutes you knew why. And
Right.
and Rob's been great. And
Yeah. Yep. Breathed, breathed a little bit of youth into the band and some excitement. And he comes in. He's excited. Everything's new to him because it really is.
right.
And so he when we walk into certain venues, he's like, "Holy shit!" We're like, "Yeah, we've been here 5 times." Like it's and it's not necessarily that it's mundane. It's just like, hey, yeah, I mean, we know, but he's excited about things like what songs we're gonna play and shit. And it's like we used to not even have the conversation. Like we would walk out on stage and whatever happened, and it's still kind of like that. But he comes in and just like, we got to play Get Happy this week, or something like that. And it's just, he's like, we're doing it at sound check, and we just let him. We're like, okay, then we're gonna do that, and he's been awesome. In fact, he gets in tomorrow. He'll be here, and we'll be finishing up some stuff on the new record, and we're gonna do like a quick, just fun hang with the guys because we haven't since we
Right.
recorded last August, and so him living in Pennsylvania, we kind of don't get to do that as much. So, yeah, he's been great, man, and super energetic and fun and happy, and it's been really great.
Was it weird the first few shows with him? Because I would imagine, the I guess I'd call it the classic lineup, that's in all the videos and
Yeah.
certainly that people have seen in concerts for 20 years. Was there like a weird, like, adaptation period for you to go, okay, that's not Eric over there, but he.
Yeah. So this is really interesting, but before he started playing bass for us, Gary had to pull off of a tour because his wife was about to have their second child, and he just didn't want to risk it. And of course, none of us wanted him to risk it. We're like, dude, we'll figure it out. We were on Warped Tour. It was like, we get it, like, just stay home. We'll find somebody. And he actually suggested Rob, which is, I think he just sort of knew from a personality standpoint that was the way to go, because I was thinking, yeah, let's just get some ringer, let's get Stacey Jones from American Hi-Fi, or, whatever. Like, and he was like, man, I think Rob would be great. And so Rob came in and played drums the rest of that tour. And so we had already toured with him. So we knew that worked, which was very, very comforting
Right.
in then trying to make a decision. And then when Eric wanted to take a bit of a break, Rob came in and just finished out a summer. And yeah, I mean, at first it was weird, but I think it being temporary first just made it to where it was like, okay, here's this guy over here that we can mess with a little bit, see what he can bring to the table, see how he fits in with this banter or whatever. And for the most part, the first month or two, me and Chris just did the majority of the back and forth, and he would chime in whenever. But he just kind of just eased into it. So I really wasn't ever uncomfortable or anything. I mean, there'd be like certain times where I was like, oh, I forgot that we used to do this thing where Eric would come kiss me on the cheek during this part sometimes or something, and we just created new ones, And so, yeah, it wasn't as weird as I think it would have been if it was just some dude that we were like, hey, we're going to try you out on the road. He had just organically needed to be there for us in two different capacities already. And so it was, and he already knew the crew, and he knew how to get his monitor mix, and he knew how we are in the mornings and how sound check goes, and all of that stuff. So just we were pretty lucky, because I know that a lot of times there's growing pains, and that there's a bit of gosh, did we make the right decision? It was definitely obvious that we made the right decision.
Well, I would imagine, especially with you guys, I'm sure you want to be in sync with someone musically new to the band, but like since you guys are so humor based and entertaining, you just don't sit there and play your instruments. That bringing in a virtuoso bass player or any position, you have to also worry if they can hang with you guys on the humor level, and he has. And
Yeah, it was very important to find somebody that took things seriously but doesn't take themselves too seriously. It's like explaining to someone how we can be serious about a show that we really aren't that serious about. I mean, we're serious in the product and what people are coming to see, and we worry if we didn't feel like it was funny, or if we didn't choose the right set list or this or that. I mean, those things do bother us. You just really wouldn't ever know. Just like being around, or watching us, you wouldn't know that we even think about that stuff. So having him be like that, and I told him really early on, I mean, I am Bowling for Soup as a vocal band. We can sing, and that's always been our thing. It's always been the deal, to where we would go into clubs with 5 bands, and we would sit and we would watch, and we would just know, man, we're lethal. We're better than everybody here. We're going to go up there and we're going to slay them. And we did every night, because we could sing real good. And whenever he got into the band, he just rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And I was like, I love it, man. I think it's great that you can play all these songs on bass. This is great. Play. It's awesome. I don't care if you ever mess up. Just sing your ass off. And I'm like, don't ever mess with me on vocals. Don't fuck me, dude. Do not. And he remembers that. Like, he talks about it all the time. But just be like, yeah. I mean, he rehearses his vocals because he just knows how important that is to not only me, but to what the product is that people are hearing out there. We take pride in sounding like our album.
Oh, you can tell, like, you guys, when I first heard you guys, you reminded me of the Cars. I mean, I know you guys don't use keyboards that much, but it was like the backing vocals were equal to your vocals, like in terms of the quality. And it was like, I'm not used to that in the bands I like. Usually it's the glam band, and it's the singer, and he either has a good voice or he doesn't. We won't mention names.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like their back vocals are piped in, and especially on the records or whatever, it's very filtered, and not necessarily just 2 dudes singing, or 3 guys singing, depending on it was. And you know what? I missed this earlier. I wanted to say that Cheap Trick is always such a good one, because we used to use that too. We used to say that Bowling for Soup is like if Cheap Trick and Steve Martin had a baby, you would have Bowling for Soup. And now I stand by that. I got to tell Rick Nielsen that. He was on Gary and I's podcast, and he got to tell him that, and of course he went up to me and said something funnier, which was awesome. And that's just sort of how we've always described ourselves. So I take that as a huge compliment.
Oh, I love Cheap Trick, and they are so entertaining. And like, you can tell Rick Nielsen has a little bit of stand-up comedy. Like, he wants to do it. Like, the last time I saw them play, I think at the Greek Theater, he's just in the middle of a solo, stops and goes, "Hey, look, everyone, it's Blackie Lawless. He's parking my car." And I was like, wow, that's kind of a roasting. It was so funny. Like, I don't think his fan or their fan base really knew who Blackie Lawless was.
Right. Yeah.
That was hilarious.
To do that in LA, which is hilarious, because Blackie Lawless was in every single band ever,
Yeah.
And then every other guy was in his band, such an interesting reference, man. That's the comedy behind that guy. He's just Witty.
But like I always, you never hear his name in the conversation for great guitar players of all time, and because he's so funny and he's got the wacky outfits and
Mhm.
does the guitar change after every song. His tech must be amazing.
Yeah.
Do you guys, since you kind of fit into that genre of humor and music, do you get, I don't know if upset is the right word, but do you wish sometimes your songwriting and musicianship got taken a little more seriously?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff comes up. It's funny, from a local, because here's the thing, at the end of the day, who gives a shit, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if you win those things, but like, there's a local Dallas thing that they have on Facebook. It's this big group here, all the old dudes from our day, and even a couple of generations back and a couple of generations forward, but basically the heyday of Dallas music are on there, and they do these polls where they're like, best singer, best guitar player, best this or what, and though I'm very happy that those that win, we don't ever get nominated, and it's a really interesting thing to me because I know what you know. Again, I don't tiptoe around what I feel like my skills as a vocalist are, but even me aside, like, I mean, Gary is, I think, easily in the top 5 drummers, maybe ever, to come out of this city. And it's crazy to me that they don't recognize that. But I think there is something attached to us, that we didn't get nominated for a lot of awards back in the day here locally. We don't come up in polls a lot. Um, and that's all right. I mean, and that kind of even goes back to, you know, I don't. A lot of people don't even realize this, but we only got taken out on tour by 3 bands ever. We never got support. One of them was in Canada. It was a band called Gob, and then Catch 22 took us and Sum 41 out, as we were both blowing up. And then the band 10 Foot Pole took us out, and we actually had to pull off that tour because Girl and the Bad Guys Want got nominated for a Grammy, and stuff started going nutty. But all of that coming up and stuff, we did it all on our own. We couldn't even get people to let us open up for them because we just weren't taking that seriously. And then I think what happens is, and then also that we had this whole phase where we were like the darlings of the UK press, and then they kind of turned on us for 5 or 6 years because we were doing the same thing as far as they were concerned. And then there just kind of comes this point. I believe it was 2014. We were doing Warp Tour, and we were doing Warp Tour with all these heavy bands of the day, Asking Alexandria, and all of those like super hardcore bands. And we were like, we're gonna get eaten up. Like, these kids are literally gonna hate us. And it was the opposite. It was like all those dudes coming up going, you guys are the reason that I bought a guitar, and you're Gary's my favorite drummer, and this. And at that same time, all of those press people started coming around going, it's stupid for me to write anything bad about this band because they're bigger than they've ever been crowd wise, and they're still writing the same shit that they've been doing. I mean, they do what they do best. And so yeah, I mean, I think now we do get a bit of a respect, more in the world than we used to. We're definitely, and I'm comfortable with that. But I was comfortable the other way too, because I guess I sort of understand when you when you see our band and we're up there for 90 minutes, but a solid 40 minutes of it is us just talking. Like, to most bands, they don't, they just don't really understand that mentality. So, but fans do.
I mean, it always bothered me. Like, I hold grudges for other people, and most of them I've never met. Like, I went to a Frank Zappa tribute show out here, and you had all these virtuoso musicians playing, and then Warren DeMartini from Rat gets up there, and you could tell he was the least respected person by the crowd, because they're like, "Oh, that's the guy who was in the Lay It Down video looking like a gay pirate." Um, and he had the best I think he did like 2 songs, but he played better than anyone up there. And I think, and I could tell he could care less if, he's respected in that room, but it was just like, it was nice to see him get a little like, nah, I can play better than anyone here. So
Sure.
enjoy
Yeah.
the next 2 songs.
I've definitely done charity things where it's celebrity things, and I go in and not a lot of people talking to me and or even know who the fuck I am, and then after I go out and do my thing, um, for the most part, everybody warms up to me, and we have a fantastic rest of the night. So, but again, that's even I tend to be overly sensitive about that kind of stuff anyway because I'm an anxious person, and so I've definitely somebody doesn't like say hi to me or whatever, I'm like, well, they fucking hate me, that's
Well, I get the feeling we have the same sense of humor because, and I certainly is not as known as you guys are, but like, I wear the all leather outfits and, a vintage rat shirt or a bowling for soup shirt. And, I want to be taken seriously too. Like, oh, this guy
yeah,
can write jokes. It's not
yeah.
just like the outfit or whatever. And, um, so I'm trying to be like the bowling for soup of stand-up comics. You
Be
give
the
a
bowling
little.
for soup of comedy. You
Well, yeah,
should.
you give both. You give the humor and you give the songwriting and the vocals and like I don't know. I mean, it just
Yeah.
you guys have been around for 27 years. It's not just shtick.
Yeah, you the whole thing about it being shtick sort of goes out the window after about 15, I think. I think people start to have to give you at least a little credit for hanging in there, and quite frankly, I mean, we just do really well on on the outlets that we're given. I mean, our music streams well, and again, that's testament to a very loyal fan base, as I said earlier, and just persistence from us, of just, hey, if you don't like us, we're gonna beat it into your head.
I love it. Now let's get to the videos because I know your time is limited here. I could talk to hours for you, and I'm sure your heart just sank hearing that. But um, you guys also became known for your videos, which, like your songs, had humor in them. Is that at some point an anchor to know when you release a single that you have to make a funny video for it too, like you just did one with Alexa Bliss?
Yeah.
Merging the wrestling, is that hard to come up with a concept video to match the song?
It's not. It's I mean, when we were during the all of the hits, you had a bit of a budget from the record label. And then we got dropped in 2009. And so since then, these 12 years or so, we've been back on our own, which we were the first 9 years. So now it's our money. And so it's the point of trying to make this and trying to make a great video, but you're on a budget and this thing may not work for you. It's like, you don't, it's not going to be on MTV. It's not going to be on VH1. Even the video channels in the UK are sort of kind of going by the wayside, or at least going to online only. So, it becomes one of those things where you just got to be pretty careful. So I kind of messed up, man. For the last couple of records, we didn't really do much video wise. I didn't really pay attention to them. Some of that, I'll be honest, I've gained a lot of weight over the last 8 years, and I'm pretty self-conscious about that. And I think I'm about over it because pretty much everybody knows it now. So like I don't have to read the comments and it just be like, Jesus Christ, it looks like he ate the singer of Bowling for Soup, which I wrote that joke. And so they can't get me with that one. But video is king. It always has been king. I mean, I think it's obvious from the way that it impacted music in the 80s, even the 90s. So we have to be thinking about that moving forward. So we're doing really well with it. I mean, our this last single, we did some puppets, and it's doing really great. And this next video that we're about to release might be up there with the best ever. And so yeah, it's just a matter of getting creative this day and age, but being able to financially make it make sense.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is part of the promotion of this song or this album. Can we do that? Can you say, and that's what movies are about to go through. You're listening to um, interviews with big time actors and actresses, and they know, like, hey, these budgets aren't going to be the same anymore. What kind of movies are we going to make? So it's the same with, hey, these budgets aren't going to be the same anymore. What kind of videos can we make? Um, but yeah, back in the day, it was nice because we could just come up with an idea, and it'd be like, okay, here's how much money you have to do it, and then you just give it to the director and the producer and go, here's what we want to do, and here's how much we have to spend. Let's go do as much of this as we can. And a lot of times you get all of it in, like 1985 or Punk Rock 101, Girl the Bad Guys Want. We got all that in. Almost, which was a really good one for us. Turbulence, which would no, not Turbulence. We did that on our own. But When We Die, we got the $6 Million Man. We got freaking, it's Lee Majors, and he cost $5,000, by the way.
Maybe I should hire him.
I don't know about that anymore. He's living the good life down in Houston, Texas these days. But yeah, they were always fun, and for us they were fun to make because we got to just be together, and that's the way we are.
I mean, my favorite video of all time by any band, not just you guys, is the unedited version of My Weena.
Yes.
I mean, that I have to ask you about that video, not the one with the dogs.
Yep, I got you.
The
6-foot penis.
What was? Yeah, I mean, was it just like hit record and we're gonna mess around and we're gonna have a giant dick and like hot dogs and fish tacos? Like, was that a collaborative effort or?
Yeah, it was collaborative between the band and then the video director. And then I think, excuse me, that is so rude. I'm sorry.
No, listen, it's not rude. You're nice enough to do this. So
I think our A&R guy threw in a few too, but it was just as many things as you could get in. And for those who haven't seen it, the internet got scrubbed with that video several years ago because we were doing a series of shows, and the money was really good, but we needed our online presence to sort of, I guess, look a certain way. Honestly, it was all a management thing, and whether or not we agreed, it happened. And I wish that video was more out there, and it will be. But if you haven't seen it, a beautiful, beautiful girl in a 6-foot penis costume, complete with balls, and she serves us lemonade, but the lemonade doesn't taste good. She wants fish tacos. She's drinking some milk, and I tell her a joke, and she spits the milk out. And man, we had one bit though, dude, that didn't make it into the video because I guess it just didn't quite work. But it was me and her were holding hands, and we got into a swimming pool, and the water was really cold, and so she shrank, and it got shot. And I really, really wish that I could find the footage to it, because it did not work at all. But just that idea was so funny. It'd be fun to have that out there. But yeah, definitely, Gary was not happy about the video because
really?
we needed a place to do it. And he had just moved into that house, and the director guy and me backing him up were like, dude, it's not going to be a big deal, man. We're just come in, commando style video. We'll roll in, we'll shoot it all, we'll get out of here, whatever. And I pulled up early that morning, and there were two huge box trucks full of equipment out there, and just calling all this attention. And then next thing you know, we're set up full band in the middle of his street. We've got a giant penis walking down the street, and he hasn't even met his neighbors yet. Like, it was he was pretty stressed out about the whole thing. At the end of the day, he's he's a good sport, so he's fine with it. But it was a bit. I mean, the crew tried to make lunch because we were on a budget, so they tried to make hamburgers and hot dogs on his grill and set his porch on fire. Like it was a crazy day.
Is it, you mentioned earlier that especially in the 80s, like I think every hit song that Rat had, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, was really, people got into it through seeing the video first.
Yeah.
Is it now in 2021 and really the last couple of years since MTV is, I don't even think they show videos anymore. It's like, I'm 18 and pregnant, I'm 19 and divorced, the Jersey Shore. And is it unmotivating for a band in this era to want to come up with a concept and all this great stuff for a video when you know the best right now can be is on YouTube?
I have to, so bands that I work with outside of Bowling for Soup, I have to convince them, they don't want to spend money on the video. They don't want to put the effort into the video. The point is that, look, it being on YouTube is still the #1 place for discovery of music on the planet and bigger than anything's ever been. It's bigger than radio's ever been. So you need to play ball there. People got out of the habit for quite a while, but bigger artists started making bigger videos again. And you know what? Those that are doing it are winning because, your video doing well 100% translates into your song being put on a playlist and then your song being, streamed. And quite frankly, that's how, if you're going to make money off music, that's how you're going to do it these days.
And for the record, you can see the My Weena video on Vimeo. If
yes.
That's so until it gets back on YouTube where it should be, go to Vimeo. And Jared, I know you got to go. I have 2 quick questions for you. First of all, thank you for doing this.
No, man, anytime. I'd love to come back. We have so much to catch up on.
I know. I mean, I'm cognizant of the you've got other things to do than talk to Earl in LA. So
long overdue, man. It's long overdue.
Oh, absolutely. I just figure we're never going to, or not never, we're not going to be in the same room for, probably a while just because things being what they are, which leads me to my next question. What were the differences between recording in the past versus for your new album out in September? Yeah. And by the way, go to bowlingforsoup.com, buy the records, buy the live albums they have. And Jared has a great deal right now, $10 t-shirts on.
I do. That's true. Yes.
On your own website, or can they get it on bowlingforsoup.com?
They can go to Bowling for Soup, or you can just go to jaretreddick.com. Either way, but yeah, I've got $10 t-shirts. One says hungover. I'm hungover as a hockey team, and they're good stuff.
Yeah, but so what was the hardest part about recording a new album in this wacky time we're living? Like you said, Rob's in Pennsylvania. I'm assuming a lot of Zoom.
Yeah, well, it's evolved over the years, as has everything. It used to be a thing. You wrote the album while you were on tour, and then you rehearsed when you got home, and you went and recorded. We got signed to a deal. We we could kind of sit back and rehearse for a month, and then I would write the songs as we went. We did that for a few times, but really just the way computers work these days, the songs are written and hashed out to just like a general beat, general bass line, guitar ideas thrown in there, scratch vocal thrown down, some scratch harmonies or whatever, but all to a click, which is a metronome to those who are unaware. And essentially we do what my friend Linus calls paint by numbers. You turn off the drums and Gary goes in there and he plays the song to the stuff that's there. And then we turn off the bass, add those drums in, Rob goes and he plays the bass. And then you just go from there. The last thing we do is the vocals. So up until, 2009, when we were on Jive, we were doing what I call destination albums, where we would go somewhere for a month or 6 weeks and make the record. And most of the stories that we tell come from those times. Like, oh my God, this or this hotel room or this thing. Once we started recording again after Sorry for Partying, when we did Fishing for Woos, we've done all the rest of them in Dallas. So it became like kind of like going to work, and we weren't all there every day. And it just wasn't, you get it done and you're proud of it, but the fun aspect of it, just the hang is gone. Well, COVID started, and we missed each other. We did a bunch of things on the internet called band meetings, and we would just go on Facebook and literally hang out until either Chris was so drunk that we had to get off the internet, or someone had to go do something, that was of like actual something, And so Rob's brother had been in, no, I tell you what it was. Rob had gone into a studio with his brother's band called Don't Panic and recorded some stuff. And I saw some photos. I'm like, how is that studio up there? They live in the Poconos up in Pennsylvania, and the studio seemed super cool. And I just go, all right, here's what we're doing. End of the summer, we're going up to the Poconos and we're going to make an album. And I was just like, mark off these dates. Here's what's happening. So that was the plan. We didn't know how it was going to work. As it got closer, none of us were really ready to fly yet. So we got a tour bus. We had the tour bus drive us to the Poconos. We got a Airbnb that was way cheaper than hotels and way more awesome. And we lived in this 6-bedroom house, and we went a mile to the studio each day, recorded, and then we came back and we cooked dinner, and all of our sports were back on. The Stars, the Mavericks, everybody, and they were watching the Cowboys. I was watching the Steelers.
Yeah.
Like, football was back, It was awesome. And we got to go, and we made a destination record, and we took the bus back. And so, it was just a matter of like, it's what we needed. Everybody came back just going, oh man, everybody had a new outlook on just life, which seems very dramatic, but gosh, being, after touring the world for so long and always having something on your calendar to get to, and a blank calendar for so long, and a blank calendar after, just needed something. And that really put a pep in our step. And it didn't hurt that everybody really loves the songs. So, that was the difference. I do hope that that we will continue to do those, though I do understand from Gary's standpoint. My two older kids are pretty much grown now, and my 8-year-old, is so busy he wouldn't even notice if I'm gone for a couple of weeks. So I hope that we can continue to do destination records, on the ones that we have left in us.
Well, I know I was sad last week because of the passing of Tawny Katane. And the only reason I bring that up at the end of the interview is, do your kids ever see like the video for 1985 and go, Daddy, why is she doing the splits on that car?
I don't know that they've seen that. If they have, it's been a really long time. They're pretty funny kids, man. My daughter still, and this is so weird. She was born on the same day we got nominated for a Grammy back in 2003. And so her whole life has been like, your dad's on this show, or there's this TV, or he's on this thing, or, now he's on Phineas and Ferb, and now he's Chuck E. Cheese. And it's just been always something. And I don't know. She's just always been, well, that's awesome, Dad. Just recently, though, she's 18, and she'll just come in and tell me facts about things. She'll go, this is recent. She goes, do you know how many monthly listeners you have on Spotify? And I'm like, I think like 4 million. I'm not sure. I think it's close to that. And she goes, yeah, that's like really good. Did you know that? I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to tell you that for 18 years. My son Jack is 15, and he was the funny little kid. He would just tell people at the store, like, my dad's famous, and then my 8-year-old, it's, he comes in here all the time. What are you doing? I'm recording a song. Oh, What's it about? I can't tell you. It's inappropriate. Okay. Well, will you come watch me do these tricks on the trampoline, please? And so he just kind of, so much of he's here and I'm here and he sees so much of the creative side of things and us doing these podcasts. I'm interested to see what his, how he describes what his life was like when he grows up, because like, again, like Rob will be here tomorrow and he'll be here through Friday. And then we've got a podcast tonight. So it's Jaret Goes to the Movies. So Jaret Goes to the Movies is tonight. So all these people come over. We're just in this room talking about movies. And, then, it's just people just in and out of this house all the time. But it's not like it's, an LA thing back in the 70s. It's not a party house. It's just, work going on and people coming in. And so he's pretty used to it. And, but he's, he every once in a while somebody will say something and he'll say, like my teacher really likes your band, and I'll be like, well, that's super cool. Ask her what her favorite song is, and but they're awesome little people, man. They really are.
Well, I didn't know. Now I feel bad that you have a podcast tonight and I took up an hour of your time. But
Dude, stop saying that. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy we finally did this, man. I would love to come back anytime. And no, man, I had to watch La La Land today, and it was good. I liked it. I'm not gonna, I'm a pretty positive person. I don't really put a lot of negativity out into the world. So even when I talk smack on something, I do it out of fun, and I think, honestly, I don't think I would offend anybody for most of the things that I say. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So, I look forward to, we still got about 3 hours until that happens. And but yeah, we'll actually, we do it live each week on Twitch, but every week a new episode of Jaret Goes to the Movies comes out. Every week a new episode of Rockstar Dad comes out, and I got a couple of other ones cooking. So it's a busy time. It really
that's
is.
good.
But good. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like I had no intentions of writing a new Bowling for Soup record, and then COVID hit and I needed it. And I had no intent, I'd been talking about doing a solo country record for years, and I went and wrote it, went and recorded it, and now we're figuring out, how that's going to be released and stuff. And so, I it was such a horrible year for so many. I have to think about, the fact that I tried to accomplish as much as I could and make it as positive an experience for me and my family as possible. And so, I think I managed to do a pretty good job of that.
Well, I can't, and I mean this, it's going to sound like I'm BSing, but I can't think of a better time for a band like Bowling for Soup to be out there, because you guys make a lot of people feel good, man. And that's no bull. In with this, even in that non-COVID era with the wacky political times of our nature, we need just
Right.
a fun 2-hour concert or whatever to laugh. Buy a t-shirt, bowlingforsoup.com. Please, $10. You can't beat that. I mean,
That's right. Yeah.
I know you're probably doing okay financially, but you do a lot of hard work. So support Bowling for Soup and Jaret so he can make more funny videos like my Weena. I wouldn't show your kids that video anytime soon. Jesus. And dude, just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like, you've always, like, when I met you at the Roxy, and it's very brief, you were nice to me then. You were nice to my friends last week in Texas. Like, dude, thank you for being you, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Sounds good, dude. Thank you.
Jaret Reddick for president 2024, bowlingforsoup.com. Go buy something.